In this video, we will talk about how the famous vegetarian, mama's boy, and mass murderer Adolf Hitler saved the American economy. Hitler is the man who pulled America out of the Great Depression and set it up to become the superpower it is today. And Kanye, Hitler's rescue of the American economy was entirely accidental, okay? Okay? Kanye. We'll have to continue without Kanye. He's not listening. Our story begins in the ancient year of 1933. Back then, grown-ups wore suits in public. The minimum wage was 25 cents, and Morgan Freeman was still a young man. He was only 74 years old. In this year, two men became leaders of their nations on opposite sides of the Atlantic. In America, the land of the free and home of the brave, the chosen man was Franklin Roosevelt. In Germany, the land of rules and regulations, it was Adolf Hitler. While Frankie was in a wheelchair, Adolf had it all. A weird comb-over, a silly mustache, and a girlfriend with a flat ass. The two men didn't know it yet, but their futures were intertwined. Frankie and Adolf were destined to fight each other to the death. They became leaders of their nations in the same year, just 2 months apart. They would die 12 years later in the exact same year and the same month, only 18 days apart. But before he died, Adolf saved Frankie's presidency, and Frankie became Adolf's worst nightmare. But first, we have to understand the economic situation in 1933. Both Adolf and Frankie inherited countries wrecked by the Great Depression. Savings of entire nations had been wiped out in the crash of 1929. People were jobless, broke, and angry. Adolf and Frankie got themselves elected by promising solutions to these problems. Very different solutions.
We will build the roads, build the schools, and rebuild the economy.
No Jews, no gypsies, and no big booty Latinas.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
You see, it all boiled down to who was to blame for the Great Depression. Frankie kept it simple. Following great American tradition, he blamed the guy who was president before him, Herbert Hoover. Hoover's government had failed to curb rampant speculation in the stock market. It was this out-of-control speculation that led to the crash of 1929, which in turn led to the Depression. Germany, on the other hand, was a second-degree victim. After losing World War I, the German government was forced to pay $500 billion in war reparations. $500 billion is a lot of money. It's what Bitcoin billionaires lose in 2 minutes. With all government revenue going to war reparations, domestic spending in Germany was funded by loans from American banks. When the 1929 crash happened, American banks recalled these loans, and Germany spiraled into a depression worse than America's. But Adolf didn't blame American bankers for Germany's economic problems. He blamed it on the Jews in Germany. He didn't just accuse them of causing the depression. He accused them of sabotaging Germany during World War I, accused them of exploiting pure-blooded Aryans, and he even accused them of stealing his missing testicle. One of the first things Adolf did when he came to power was encourage Jews to sell their businesses to Nazi party members for a fraction of what they were worth. And when I say encouraged, I really mean encouraged.
Steinberg, I want to buy your shop. My offer is $3 37 cents.
No! That's a horrible price.
Do you wanna sell now?
Of course, of course. Take the keys.
While Adolf will be remembered for killing 6 million Jews, this was still years away. In 1933, Adolf just wanted the Jews gone. He stripped them of German citizenship, banned them from marrying Aryans, and he even expelled their kids from public schools. But there was another problem. No country wanted to accept Jewish refugees. The United States had tightened its immigration policy after the Depression hit. The days of poor immigrants sailing across the Atlantic to chase the American dream were long gone. After the Depression, you had to be rich to enter America. The being rich part was tough on many Jews. Despite Nazi propaganda, very few Jews were billionaires. The vast majority of Jews were just middle-class folks with regular jobs. You know, kind of like you and the guy whose wife I am stealing. The Jews who were rich enough to afford living in Germany had to pay a 50% exit tax. That is exactly what it sounds like. The Nazi government took 50% of your stuff before allowing you to leave. The only thing you could carry was cash. This cash was in German marks, which could only be converted into foreign currency at very rigged exchange rates. By the time a rich Jew liquidated his assets, paid the exit tax, and converted his Reichsmarks into dollars, he would be just as poor as a member of the Aryan master race. If you weren't a super rich Jew to begin with, you ran the risk of being too poor to be granted an American visa at the end of it all. While America's immigration restrictions were horrendous, they were still the best in the world at the time. Countries like Britain and Canada did not start admitting Jewish refugees until Hitler started murdering them in 1938. Between 1933 and 1938, the only escape destination for German Jews was America, and America only wanted the rich Jews. These rich Jews brought a lot of money with them, money the American economy desperately needed. In addition to robbing Jews, Adolf was engaging in even more hanky-panky with the state's finances. When he came to power in 1933, 30% of Germans were unemployed. This was a massive problem. While Adolf blamed the Jews for ruining Germany, it was the unemployed Aryans who were committing all the crimes. Frankie had a similar problem to Adolf. 20% of Americans were out of work. Frankie and Adolf took similar and yet very different approaches to the issues of unemployment and poverty. Frankie started welfare programs like Social Security to help the underprivileged. Adolf put a lot of money into welfare too, but his welfare programs came with a twist. They were only for pure-blooded Aryans. If you were from the wrong race or were unlucky enough to be disabled, a certain something was done to you. Canadians call it medically assisted death. The Nazis called it T4, and God calls it murder. Anyway, back to economic issues. Frankie built roads and schools and hospitals. Adolf built those too, but bigger. Building projects are great because they create vital economic infrastructure, while also employing lots of people, something that helps reduce all that unemployment. But employing millions of people to build all the stuff governments like to build is very expensive. Both the American and the German governments were broke. How did they afford all this stuff? How could they pay the wages and buy building materials? Frankie did it by taking America off the gold standard, borrowing lots of money, and raising taxes. This only reduced unemployment by 5%. Adolf, on the other hand, wasn't the kind of guy who did boring economic policies that take 20 years to show results. He was going to speedrun Germany's economic recovery or die trying. Adolf raised taxes, but only on Jews. He financed the rest of his government spending with stupendous amounts of borrowing. Adolf borrowed so much money that his ministers started telling him to chill. The Nazi government used a lot of sketchy methods to hide its excessive borrowing from the voters and international observers. One scheme involved this shell company, Metallurgisch Forschungsgesellschaft.
Metallurgische Forschungsgesellschaft.
Stay warned, I tried pronouncing that name properly, and now it has made me hungry for power. The English translation of this word is Metallurgical Research Corporation, aka MEFO. MEFO didn't do any research. It had no employees, no assets, and no operations. All MEFO did was issue bonds. The money from these bond sales was funneled to the Nazi government. MEFO bonds were always sold out because the Nazi government came up with a foolproof way of making German banks and insurance companies buy them.
Buy this bond?
I can't. It's a bad investment.
You want to die?
No, Rex Minister. It's just that the bank doesn't have enough money.
Use customer deposits.
But, Rex Minister, that's illegal.
Use them all.
Remember what we said about Adolf Hitler? Oh, Jesus. Remember what we said about Adolf speedrunning Germany's economic recovery? He wasn't just building roads and hospitals like some no-me politician. The money from MEFO bond sales and other schemes went towards a very special project. While Frankie tried and failed to achieve full employment in America by building roads and schools, Adolf achieved full employment in Germany. This is because on top of roads and schools, Adolf was building planes and tanks and guns. Lots of guns. Adolf planned to start a war. This war was the most important part of his economic policy. At the end of the day, even governments have to pay their debts. When governments borrow money, they have to justify it. A new port, for example, increases trade, which brings in more taxes that can then be used to repay the loan. This was Frankie's reasoning. It's similar to the one you make when you take out a student loan.
I will take this loan, go to college, land high-paying job after graduation, and pay off the loan with my new fat salary.
You serious?
Bad student loan analogy aside, you get the point. The American plan was to take a loan, go to school, and pay it off with future earnings. You know, old and boring. The German plan was to take a loan, buy guns, and then rob a bank to repay that loan. What could possibly go wrong? That's how Adolf planned to solve Germany's money problems. It was a simple three-step plan. Rearm the military, go to war, and use the spoils of that war to pay off Germany's debt. Why work hard for financial success when you can just rob France? Adolf's plan went incredibly well at first. When the Nazis occupied Czechoslovakia and Poland, they plundered the resources of those countries and enslaved everyone they considered racially inferior. The same thing happened when Germany conquered France. Hitler forced the French to sell their goods to Germany at rock-bottom prices. By 1943, 2/3 of French trains were being used to transport French goods to Germany. The Nazis didn't just steal gold, expensive paintings and champagne from France. They stole wheat and milk and Bibles. Too bad they never read them. Even in countries where the Nazis didn't massacre the population because they were considered Aryans, the robbery didn't stop. The Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark, and Norway were all plundered. For a man who liked calling Jews parasites, Adolf demonstrated a shocking lack of self-awareness. Parasitism. 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 While Germany had been busy rearming, a lot of observant people across Europe realized that this Adolf guy was going to start a war. So they moved their money to America ASAP. Again, this was a great boost to the American economy. As Adolf went around conquering Europe like it was still 300 BC, he realized a shocking truth about people. They don't like being murdered.
Guys, I'm cool. Come back. I want to kill you and steal your stuff.
Frankie hadn't learned the simple trick of speedrunning America's economic recovery by robbing Canada and Mexico, but Adolf helped him anyway. As German tanks rolled into Poland and France, European gold sailed to America. The more Adolf threatened other Europeans, the more money and gold they hid away in America. This money was invested in American companies and helped stimulate the still struggling economy. After Adolf crushed the French army in a mere 6 weeks, Britain knew it was up next and there was only one man to turn to: Uncle Sam. With Britain and the Soviet Union struggling to produce planes, guns, and food while German bombs fell on them like rain, America came to the rescue for a price.
Y'all will buy American weapons. Forever.
Okay.
Y'all will learn to speak perfect American.
The language is called English, but yes, we will speak it.
Now say America is your daddy.
America is my daddy. Please give me the guns. Please.
Candy ass Europos. Here you go. Go kill some crowds. We'll join you later.
When is later?
The year after next year. If the Japs don't bomb us, maybe never.
It was this full onset of World War II that finally ended the Depression in these United States. It was only with the war that American GDP returned to the levels it had been at before the 1929 crash. Americans exported food to Britain and Russia and produced armaments for the Allied armies in Europe. These new factory and farm jobs in service of the war finally eliminated unemployment in the US. For 2 years, Europe fought alone, and then Japan did Europe a favor and bombed Pearl Harbor. America finally entered the war. Arms manufacturing was ramped up to a level never seen before in the history of the world. There were so many jobs needing to be filled that women left the home and took up factory jobs in large numbers for the first time in American history. Everyone that wanted a job had one. The American economy recovered fully. Adolf had saved Frankie's presidency. By the time the war ended, Britain had been bombed to hell and back. The Soviets had lost 27 million people, and Japan had been nuked so hard they started making whatever this is. America was the strongest country left standing, and nothing has ever been the same again. Frankie didn't live to see the end of the war. He died of a brain hemorrhage on the 12th of April, 1945. On the 20th of April, 8 days after Frankie died, the Red Army arrived outside Berlin. This day was special in another way. It was Adolf's birthday. To celebrate the occasion, the Soviets set up their artillery and shelled Berlin like there was no tomorrow. After 9 days of constant bombardment, Adolf did what all cornered and defeated tyrants do. He got married. Adolf had been dating Eva Braun for around 15 years. He kept the relationship secret because he told his supporters that he was too busy committing genocide to make time for girls. But behind closed doors, Adolf and Eva were going at it like ladybugs, or however vigorously a man with one testicle and a tiny joystick can go at it.
It is not the size of the dog, it is the size of the fight in the dog.
This message was sponsored by the Tiny People Society. It is not over until she laughs.
As the war neared its end and Adolf looked more and more like the undisputed loser, Eva did the one thing your girlfriend will never do. She left the scenic city of Munich and went to join her man in hell itself, Berlin. Adolf and Eva got married on the 29th of April and spent the night doing whatever newly married couples do on their wedding night. When morning came, Eva asked that question that wives always ask. You know the one?
Babe, where are we going for a honeymoon?
I don't know. I don't know.
Heinrich is suggesting Argentina. I don't like Argentina. If you take Messi's left foot out of that country, all you're left with is a trashier version of Mississippi.
Where do you want to go, my love?
I like Santorini. Maybe Monaco. Monica went to Monaco.
Nein, we're going to heaven.
We'll go and let us in.
We will find out when we arrive.
Is it again? Hello?
It's a subscribe button. Hit it if you hate Hitler.